Welcome to the online Rica Test preparation course presented by ricatest.com. Thank you so much for joining. In this lesson, you will learn the simple framework to writing a passing response for your Subtest 1 long essay. And this includes Domain 2 word analysis. Before you read the essay prompt, remember, read the task to understand what you're going to be asked to write about. So let's read this. Examining task. Based on your analysis of the assessment evidence provided, write a response in which you, number one, identify one important need demonstrated by this student in the area of word analysis. Okay. Number two, describe an instructional strategy or activity to address this need. And number three, explain why the instructional strategy or activity you described would be effective for this purpose, citing evidence from the student's performance to support your response. I'm going to shortly pause the video before I show my essay response to remind you that this prompt is embedded within your Rica Subtest 1 workbook that came with this course. So if you haven't already, try your best to write your own response and then come back to watch my written response process. Now, let's go ahead and read the prompt. Essay prompt says, at the beginning of the year, a third grade teacher asks her students to read aloud a list of 50 words to assess their word analysis skills. As students read, the teacher records their performance on a separate copy of the list, using check marks to show words a student reads accurately and uses simplified phonetic transcription to record any errors. Below is part of the teacher's record for one student's assessment. Okay, here's the student assessment. I see there's a word list, teacher note, another word list, and then the teacher note. Okay, so we have the word list, and then looks like this student correctly read brief, steer, and wit, and then had some challenge with the other words. Okay. Now, these were mentioned in the Subtest 1 essay introduction lesson, but let's remember the three performance characteristics that your written essay responses will be graded by. Let's have a look. Number one is purpose. The examinee fulfills the prompt using relevant content and pedagogical knowledge. Two, application of content. The examinee accurately and effectively applies this relevant content and pedagogical knowledge. And three, support. The examinee supports the written response with appropriate examples, evidence, and rationales based on the relevant content and pedagogical knowledge. Therefore, my first job here is to identify one important need demonstrated by this student in the area of word analysis. So I'll begin by revisiting the student assessment. Here, I notice that this student showed difficulty reading multisyllabic words that require structural analysis in order to decode them. So I'll begin writing my essay response with this notion. One need demonstrated by this student is difficulty using structural analysis to decode multisyllabic words. Now notice here how the word analysis need is clearly and directly stated. Next up, explain. The second sentence will build from the first. For example, the student's assessment shows a need to recognize root words, for example, treat, test, call, and happy, and also affixes such as mint, nis, pre, and re. This student makes syllable breaks in the middle of incorrect units of words, or also called morphemes or morphemes. In sharing this explanation, I am revisiting the student's assessment and demonstrating to the Rica Test scorer the ability to use pedagogical language and analyze in assessment. This is the first paragraph. Remember, using heading or bullet points or separating sentences with paragraphs are all ways to make scoring your response easier for the Rica Test administrator or scorer, which is key for a better score. Task 1 is complete. And next, we have task 2, which says, describe an instructional strategy or activity to address this need, which is believed to be decoding of multisyllabic words. When answering a new task, make sure to create a new paragraph. So here we begin. One strategy that would help the student would be to use direct instruction to support the student's automatic recognition of common affixes. Now, again, here we directly state the objective of the task. And next, we will want to provide an explanation through example. For example, to build automatic recognition of the common affixes, the teacher should provide additional practice reading words in isolation containing root words that the student has mastered that include affixes attached to the beginning or end. Then, the student will practice reading these targeted multisyllabic root plus affix words within decodable words and books in order to provide practice in context. The teacher uses the gradual release of responsibility model to continue building on the student's skills using complex words and short passage reading exercises containing the target root plus affix words. The teacher repeats this strategy to teach new affixes the student doesn't yet recognize automatically. Now, task 2 is complete. And so we move on to task number 3, which is to explain why the instructional strategy would be effective, while citing evidence from the student's performance in order to support our reasoning. Again, notice how I create a new paragraph to answer the third task. Here I'll begin. This strategy would be effective in addressing the student's need of using structural analysis to decode multisyllabic words because automatic recognition of affixes will help the student decode multisyllabic words that contain multiple morphemes, including helping the student identify a word's root. The strategy provides additional practice and supports the reader gradually through reading target affixes from a simple to complex sequence. Now let's discuss why this essay response works. First, the response shows an understanding of structural analysis and keywords like morphemes, affixes, and root words. And you are also going to want to use key terms within your essay response as well. Notice as well in the response that the actual procedures of building automatic recognition for affixes was given from simple, meaning in isolation, to complex, meaning in context. Furthermore, the in context practice suggested uses a decodable book, which offers better support to students practicing specific word structures. And lastly, the reasoning clearly describes why this instructional strategy would be effective. And now all 3 tasks are complete. This has been an example of how to read, how to examine, how to look at, and how to write a passing response for your Subtest 1 long essay.